Okay guys, so I'm doing a part 2 because why? My camera stopped. So I'm going to continue with Juanita and Justin on the subject. And before I was talking about my body's more metabolically expensive than hers is because I simply just have more muscle. So muscles are hungry and they need to eat. So we were trying to figure out the amount of protein that she should have in comparison to someone like me. So Juanita could go pretty low on her protein. We could probably drop her down to 50 grams a day of protein. And so her body is not used to that low amount of protein on, let's say, when we're not in Asia and they're not traveling all around like Burma and Thailand, but and not always having the quality of foods because, of course, there's sugar in everything. So it's very hard to do keto while living here for as long as they have. But with that said, when they get back home, it would probably advantageous to drop our protein down to about 50 and then jack up the fat. We were trying to figure out what kind of fat because you were having what before?
A lot of coconut oil and olive oil. And nuts, lots of nuts.
Okay, lots of nuts. Okay, the problem with nuts, as we all know, is that they are polyunsaturated fats, high in omega-3. We have too much of that already in our diet, so they can be a little bit acidic to the body if they're too high in omega-6. And they have phytic acid. So plants don't have teeth. They need to survive germination so they can populate. So they have plant chemicals that mess up your digestive system, and she's the perfect candidate of going through every digestive issue ever. So I suggested even the macadamia nuts, which are even the highest in fat, to cut them out and just go nut-free and focus on things like tallow, which is fat from animals. So you could have beef tallow, you could have pork tallow. She made a little funky face when I was like, you know, meat sugar. Because she cannot do butter, because a lot of people who have leaky gut or allergies, they can't even do butter or even ghee. They have to stay away from it. So that's why she's doing the olive oil and the coconut oil, but I want her to have more animal saturated fats into her diet. So then when her protein goes down, a lot of people don't get enough fat in and they start to feel hungry. And when you're hungry, your body starts to go into gluconeogenesis, which makes the whole thing mess up anyway, because as long as you have a little bit of sugar hanging out in the blood, you are not going to keto-adapt. The body's going to digress back to the glucose. But Juanita, we were talking about before your symptoms and the evolution of your leaky gut, and there's something else that I wanted to continue and I can't remember. You're like, don't put me on the spot. She's doing that don't put me on the spot face. Okay, but I'll just continue on that note. But there's a lot of people like her out there that have digestive issues and they became exponentially better on keto, correct? You felt a lot better. But her problem was, as I mentioned before, she wasn't able to sustain this lifestyle because her macros were not in the right order. And that's just how it is. I mean, I have a feeling because, oh yeah, your ketones were at 0.8, which after 4 weeks, which is pretty good, I have to say, with monitoring so many people. That's actually the right pace to be at. Some people can produce 1.0 or higher, but 0.8 is quite normal. So her body was liking the ketones, but she didn't have the energy, and I was trying to explain that she kept in the nuts and other allergens to her body, particularly, that can't handle it. So I'm pretty sure, and then they dropped after a while. That's another thing, that they dropped down to 0.6, and I think that's just because in the beginning her body was like, yes, get all these allergens out of my digestive system. She started to produce ketones, but because of keeping nuts in and other foods, then they start to go down. And my phone is ringing again, and I'm just gonna have to ignore it. So let's hit the reject button because this is too cool. And I actually think now it's the tuk-tuk driver that drove me around yesterday, and I gave him my little travel cell phone. Look at these little mini things from like circa 1998. Everybody uses them here. You go to the 7-Eleven. Exactly. Where'd you get your phone from? Because my friend let me borrow this one. Exactly. Okay. If you don't, like, to be honest, this crazy city, if I didn't have a phone, it would be awful. So I'm so glad I was able to meet them and coordinate meeting on the phone, but that's a digression, and you know how I love to digress. But yeah, so cut out anything that can be an allergen. Dairy, she can do no dairy, not even ghee. For those who are obsessed with cheese and nuts, and people who keep thinking that eating high protein is the way to lose weight, and I'm like, you're not keto adapted. Yeah, you're burning muscle, you're in gluconeogenesis if you eat too much protein and your fats aren't high enough, because that's another thing that people do. Because their whole thing is, well, if I eat a lot of fat, I can't lose weight. And I'm like, well, there's an induction phase, y'all. There's a first level of keto where you have to eat high fat and moderate protein to produce the ketones and actually get them into the bloodstream and into the cells and use them. Otherwise, you're wasting your time.